good morning. And happy Mother's Day to you. Don't say that back to me, all right? All right, so good to see you this morning. Again, as Mitch said earlier, we honor all of our moms here today, and I honor my mom. Thank you for being an awesome mom. Happy Mother's Day to my mom. And we are so glad to have all the moms that are joining us online as well. We're in a series we began last week called Louder. Louder. Actions speak louder than words. You know, we can say one thing, and we can say things that we mean to say that are hurtful, or we can say things that we want to say, talking about what we believe, but if we don't back it up with actions, then our words fall flat. Jesus said this, Matthew 15, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." And may that not describe us. So many people, they say things, but they don't back it up. And today, we continue this series. Last week, we talked about having honor in a cancel culture. In a world today where we want to cancel people very quickly. When they say something that we don't agree with, when they're offensive on social media, we're like, I want nothing to do with them anymore. It even happens within our own families. We cancel people. And one of the virtues that God wants us to have is the virtue of honor, honoring one another. Every single person, whether you like them or not and what they say or not, they're a creation of God, and we're called by God to honor them. Today, we look at a very important virtue called integrity. It's a matter of integrity. We need integrity in our lives. I want to begin the message today by doing something a little bit different. I want to read a psalm to you, and I believe in this psalm of David, David is speaking to the Lord, but he's talking to us about what it means to have integrity. So as I read these 5 verses, I want you to begin to think, does this describe me in the way that I live my life? Psalm 15, verse 1. David says, "Who may worship in your sanctuary, Lord? Who may enter your presence on your holy hill? Those who lead blameless lives, those who do what is right, those who speak the truth from sincere hearts." He said, "Those who refuse to gossip or harm their neighbors or speak evil of their friends. Those who despise flagrant sins and sinners, and those who honor the faithful followers of the Lord. Those who keep their promises even when it hurts. Those who lend money without charging interest. Those who cannot be bribed to lie about the innocent. Such people will stand firm forever." You know what? Today, in this world that we live in, it's shocking when you see people that have a lot of integrity. We're so used to people not having integrity that we're surprised. I saw people posting online the other day on Facebook about how shocking it was that somebody found a wallet and they turned it in with all the cash and all the credit cards intact. Like, who would do that? Well, we all should do that. But today in the world that we live in, it's surprising when people have integrity. Every week as you watch the news or you listen to the news or you get stuff in your news feed, what you find is there's another politician or another actor or actress, there's another famous athlete or famous pastor who has done something awful, who has shown a lack of integrity, who has committed some egregious sin, and they've fallen from grace, and everybody hears about it. And we're like, well, there goes another one. And it's sad. But you know what even hits home more? Is when it happens in your own family. When somebody surprises you by something that they've done. When maybe it's a friend or a coworker or somebody you go to church with. And you're like, really? They did that? And we're constantly seeing it happening all the time. People who claim one thing, we say one thing, but our actions speak louder than our words. So today we're talking about integrity. What does integrity mean? I'll tell you what it's not. First, it's not perfection. So if integrity meant perfection, there would only be one person ever that had integrity, and that would be Jesus. So let me put you at ease. If you commit sin, if you do things that are wrong, you still can be a person of integrity. I'm not giving you an excuse to do whatever you want, but I'm telling you up front, I am a sinner and you are a sinner, but you can still be a person of integrity in your life. I think it's interesting sometimes to get into the root of the word integrity, and what does it actually mean, or where did that word come from? Do we have any math nerds in the room today? Does the word, okay, well, there's one. Anybody else? Nobody wants to admit it. The way I said that made it sound like not a good thing. You people are important in our world. Math nerds, integers. You know what an integer is, right? The whole number. That's something I knew a lot about when I was in high school. I was like a really good top math student. Then I went into the ministry and didn't take any math courses in college. And you know what? I have a calculator, so why do I need to know this stuff? But integers, and this idea of a holistic approach. The word integrity also has the word integrated that goes along with it, all coming from the same root word. Here's the deal. This idea of integrity means our entire life, this entire life that we have, it all goes together. There's this holistic approach. Let me explain it this way. A lot of us live a very compartmentalized life. We have compartments. We have the professional compartment of our life. We go to work, and we have people that we interact with at work, and we act a certain way at work. For those of you that are younger, that are students, it's your academic school life. And then we have a part of our life called our social part of our lives. And for some of you, it's a social networking thing. It's online, all the social media, but it's how you interact socially with people. And then some of you, you have a family life. How you live at home with your family, the things you do, the things you say to your spouse and to your kids, to your parents. And then some of you have what we would call a spiritual compartment. The compartment of your life is how you act at church, the people you interact here, if you're in a small group, if you pray and read your Bible, you have a spiritual compartment of your life. And then we all have a personal compartment in our life, part of our life that nobody else knows except for us. Nobody knows. And the problem is we live in these different compartments of our life and we don't let them intersect with each other and we don't have a holistic approach. What that means is in our professional life, at work or academic life at school, we don't let those people there see the spiritual life because if they see our spiritual life, it might be offensive to them. Or in our social world, we don't let them see our personal life because we don't want them to know the real us. So we act a certain way, put on a certain facade online for people to see. And even in our family life, they don't even know the personal side of us. So we have all these different compartments in our lives, and that is not the way to live with integrity. Living with integrity means we have a holistic approach. It means that we're not different in what we say and how we act at work, in our social lives, in our family life, in our spiritual life, in our personal life. We're the same person all the time. And that's not easy to do. And I don't believe any one of us have the mindset where we say, my intention in life is to live in compartments and to make sure that I don't have integrity. I believe every single one of us would say, I want to be consistent. I want to be the same person wherever I am. But we fall into this trap of having compartments. And that's not what Jesus wants for our lives. If he's directing our actions, it should affect every area of our lives. So what is integrity? Let me give you a definition. Integrity is when your behavior matches your beliefs. That's pretty simple, right? That's easy to understand. When our behavior matches our beliefs, when our actions match our words. What you show on the outside is a true reflection of what's on the inside, and vice versa. This is the way Solomon said it in Proverbs. He said, people with integrity walk safely, but those who follow crooked paths will be exposed. Some translations use the word securely there instead of safely. Let me ask you a question. I want you to raise your hand, and I want you to be honest about this. How many of you have ever done something wrong or bad or sinful, and your greatest fear was being exposed, that somebody would find out? If you've ever done anything in your life like that, would you raise your hand with me? I got both hands up because I can think of two times. No, more than that. Okay, what is this verse saying? People with integrity walk safely or securely. Those who don't worry about being exposed. Isn't it a terrible feeling to go through life knowing there's something you did in secret, but there's potential that people are going to find out about it? Something bad that you did, and you hope nobody ever knows. How stressful is that, wondering if one day you're going to get caught? And especially today, where there's cameras everywhere, right? And somebody probably has a record of what you did, and you hope it just never comes out. Let me ask you another question. How many of you have ever done something which was the absolute right thing. You did the thing that showed the most integrity possible in that situation. You had integrity in your life, and you did something, and then you went through life praying, God, just please let nobody know what I did. I did something really good, and I don't want anybody to ever find out. I don't want to be exposed for having integrity. Do you ever worry about that? No, because you go through life safely with security. There's no stress in doing the right thing. There's no stress in that. We don't have to worry about what's going to happen. Integrity is when our private life is consistent with our public life. Some people define integrity as who you are when nobody else is looking, when nobody else is watching. And sometimes I think people get integrity mixed up with reputation. They're not the same thing. You can have a good reputation but not have integrity. Eventually that can catch up with your reputation, but reputation is who others think that you are. Integrity is who you really are. The opposite of integrity, you could say, is hypocrisy. Being a hypocrite. You know, that's one of the excuses people have for not going to church. I don't want to go to church because all the people that I know that go to church are hypocrites. They say one thing, but they do something else. I don't want to be part of that. Jesus had a lot to say about hypocrites. He uses that word a lot when he's talking to people. And, you know, if you go to the original word hypocrite, where it came from, it was a Greek word. It was the word hypocrite. And what that word was to describe a person who was an actor in a Greek play who would hold up a mask in front of their face as they acted out their part. The mask looked nothing like them. So you move the mask away and you see the real person. But the mask being there, they were a hypocrite. And that was okay because that was acting in a play. But from that word, we get hypocrite, which is describing a person who acts one way but is a completely different person. And you know the crazy thing about what Jesus called people out on? He was harder on people who were hypocrites than he was on prostitutes. He was harder on hypocrites than he was on adulterers. I mean, he was upset about people who claimed to be religious but then didn't really live it out. Let me give you an example. In Matthew chapter 23, Jesus said, "What sorrow awaits you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees?" He's calling out religious people. He says, "You're hypocrites, for you're so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you're filthy. You're full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too." He said, you're focused on the wrong thing. You're putting on a show. You're looking good, acting one way for everybody to see, but inside you're full of greed. You're full of self-indulgence. Clean up the inside first. He's saying that what you show on the outside, yeah, that matters, but it should come because of what's on the inside. Don't compartmentalize your life. I read this story this week about a man who was a builder, built homes for a living. And he worked for a very well-known company building homes for 40 years. The same job for 40 years. If you do the same job for 40 years, you probably eventually get tired. And he got to the end of his career and he was getting ready to retire. He wanted to spend more time with his kids and be a grandpa. And so around the 35-year mark, he started telegraphing his plan, saying 5 years from now, at the 40-year mark, I'm going to retire. He kept letting everybody know. There was no surprise that this home builder was going to retire. He did awesome work. He was known for building great homes working for this company. It got down to the last couple months before he was going to retire. And the owner of the company came to him with about a month left and said, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you build me one more home?" The man was annoyed. He was frustrated. He's like, come on. I mean, I've been planning this retirement on this date for so long. The owner pleaded with him, just one more, please. So he agreed to do it. But guess what? His heart wasn't really in it. So he built the last home he built for that company. His heart not being in it, he cut some corners. He hired some subcontractors that weren't the best. He used some materials that weren't the best. He just didn't do his best work at all. He finished the house, and on the outside it looked like the rest of the houses that he had built, but he knew it wasn't as good of a house. He didn't build it with the integrity that he had built the other houses with. And when he was done and he was, ready to walk away, the owner of the company came to him and had a big smile on his face. And he said, "I want to present you with something. Here's the keys to your new house. here's your gift for all those 40 years you've given me. Wow. And you say, why are you telling us that story? Because every single day of your life, you're building your own house. You're building your own house. With every decision you make, everything you say, everything you do, you're building your house. And that's where you're going to live. And that's where you're going to spend the rest of your life. Every decision you make matters. When you choose to be generous instead of being selfish, you're building your house. When you choose to honor other people and encourage them rather than dishonoring them and putting them down, you're building your house. When you do what's right instead of cutting corners, you're building your house. When you tell the truth about what happened rather than telling the story in a way that benefits you, you're building your house. When you extend grace to sinners rather than judging harshly, you're building your house. Moms, you're building your legacy every single day the way you are as a mom. Dads, same for you. Grandparents, the same for you. What happens matters. In your homes, what happens? And I believe this is true. One of the fastest ways to raise rebellious children and have rebellious teenagers is to talk one way but live differently at home. To put on a show at church and in your social life, wherever that takes you, but then at home, be a different person. You can't be perfect, I know. My kids could tell you how imperfect I am at home. But when you live with integrity, that means you're the same person out there in the world that you are at home. Your kids see that. But when they see the inconsistencies, why would they want anything to do with God? Because it doesn't really change your life. Here's a question. I want you to think about this. What is your integrity worth to you? Like, what is it worth? You know, a lot of us do have a price. You say, well, I wouldn't give it up for anything. There's a point at which many of us would compromise our integrity. Would you ever lie on a resume if it meant getting a pay increase for a new job, like make 50 grand more than you're making now? I said, maybe. Would you? Would you falsify an expense report? The company hasn't given you a raise like you deserve, so I'll get it for myself, or I'll maybe take some things home from work. That extra box of paper clips, maybe your integrity is worth $2.99. What is your integrity worth? As a student, cheating on an exam for a better grade, to get a better score, to get into a better college, to get a scholarship, exaggerating a story to be liked more. For some people, your integrity might be worth $20 a month because you steal your friend's login to Netflix every month. Some of you, your integrity, what's it worth? You know, photoshopping that ticket to that event to get better seats, not paying the difference that you should pay? Is it lying about your kid's age to get a discount ticket? I know he has a mustache, but he is 9 years old. I promise you. You know, just to save $10. What is your integrity worth to you? See, in everything that we do, you say those things don't matter that much. Do they or don't they? You know, sometimes in our lives, we just don't realize how much our actions are speaking. So much louder than what we say. Integrity is something I believe that we desperately need. And either in our life we learn the lesson along the way and we grow from it, or we continue to live like a hypocrite. Let me give you 4 reasons that we should have integrity. Why should I have integrity? Let me give you 4. 1, I'm being watched by God. I am being watched by God. I had a moment years ago when I was a youth pastor in my late 20s. I remember this one particular day. It was a Sunday after church. Had a big church building, had a gymnasium and a full-service kitchen. And one thing we would do is have lunches sometimes after the services as a fundraiser for youth camp, youth missions trips. And so we had a spaghetti dinner that day, and there was the cleanup going on afterwards. And I noticed that 2 of my high school students had disappeared. They were helping, and then they were gone. It was a guy and a girl that had just recently became a couple. And I didn't know where they were. And they were active in youth group, family's very active, so I thought, I need to find them. So I went looking around the building, and then I thought of a place. There was this family restroom, you might call it, in the back of the sanctuary where nobody would be that time of the day. And I went back there and went up to the door, and I heard voices. I said, So what do I do in this situation? Do I bang on the door and yell at them? The door's locked. What am I going to do? And I thought, This is what I could do. There's a piece of paper here on this table and a pen. So I took this paper and pen and wrote in big, bold, all caps, God is watching. And then I slid it under the door. That was one of my favorite moments as a youth pastor. Oh, I loved it. They didn't come out right away. I walked away. It was quiet, dead quiet after that. I walked away. They came out red-faced a little bit later. That relationship didn't last anyway. But the truth is, God is watching. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you think you get away with stuff. You think nobody saw it. Nobody knows what I've done. God knows. God always knows. God sees everything that we do. Why do people ever steal? Because they think they can get away with stealing. Like, nobody saw me. Sometimes we think we can get away with stuff. Satan's whispering in our ear. Like, nobody's going to see it. Take those towels from that nice hotel. They're not going to notice. Nobody. In fact, like I said earlier, your company's ripping you off. They're not going to miss that ream of paper you took home. You deserve whatever it is. You deserve it. Job says in Job 34, for God carefully watches the way people live. He sees everything they do. There's no darkness that's thick enough to hide the wicked from his eyes. I can fool other people. I can fool the government. I can fool the insurance company. I'm not fooling God. And one day I'm going to give an account to God for everything that I've done. I remember, I think I was 19 and I was in college. I remember that. And I went to the ATM machine to get some cash. And you know how precious cash is in college. And I remember getting $40 out of my account. I typed in 40, it came out. But guess what? 3 $20 bills came out. Thank you, Lord. Man, you're smiling on me. I'm going into the ministry. You're giving me an extra $20. And I start walking away from the ATM, and then I thought, what's the right thing to do? So I went back in to the bank, up to the teller, and I had that $20 bill. I told her, I put in 40, the receipt says 40, but I got 60. And I was expecting this, man, what a fine young man you are. That is so awesome. Well, it's just a mistake of the machine. Go ahead and keep it, and you're celebrated. She said, thank you very much. That's it. That was it. Like, I thought I was going to get applauded for my integrity. But the thing is, what God was teaching me is, like, you got to do the right thing no matter what. And it's hard sometimes, right? It's not always easy. But guess what? We're being watched. We're being watched by God. We're being watched by children, grandchildren. We're being watched by the world. And it all matters. Another reason to have integrity is, number 2, I'm going to reap what I sow. This is one of those laws of the universe that we cannot violate. Paul said it this way in Galatians. Don't be misled. Remember that you can't ignore God and get away with it. You will always reap what you sow. Always. Doesn't say most of the time, but it says always. You're like, well, you know what, Steve? I've gotten away with some stuff. Just wait. It's going to catch up to you. I believe God's going to bless you when you have integrity. But I think eventually it's going to be found out. Whoever leaked that document from the Supreme Court, we might not know their name yet, but I bet we will. I bet we're going to find out one day who it is. You know what? Things have their way of being found out. Things catch up to us over time. But when you maintain integrity throughout your life, guess what? You don't got to worry about that. There's no stress about one day getting caught or things catching up to you. It's going to be fine. Don't be misled. Don't be deceived. Satan is a master deceiver. He's telling you, it's okay. You're going to get away with this. Not a big deal. I'm going to reap what I sow. You better believe it. Number 3, dishonesty damages my integrity. It damages my character when I'm dishonest. I want to ask this question. Why do we lie so much? And you're sitting there thinking, Steve, I don't lie. Okay. We live in a culture of perpetual lying. I don't think people even realize that they're doing it. I don't think that you realize it when you're doing it. I think we're so used to it. And some of it is just a matter of not wanting to hurt somebody's feelings. We all maybe are guilty of some of those lies. We don't want to be mean, and so we, kind of don't say what we really think and what's true. Sometimes, though, I think our lies are motivated by laziness. Telling the truth is a lot more work. You got to explain things a little bit more. Sometimes we lie because of pride. We don't want to show our flaws. We don't want to show our weaknesses. We all have them. Sometimes people lie because of greed, lying on taxes. We want to get more. All of that. What does Jesus say? Mark chapter 8, verse 36. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? He's saying we can have all the money, all the fame, all the popularity, all the social media followers that we want. But if you lose your integrity, what do you have? What do you have? It is so important that we do all that we can to maintain our integrity. God is always honest. He's always truthful. He's never dishonest. And I know people make excuses all the time for their dishonesty. I can't make it in the marketplace by just telling the truth all the time. I appreciate when I see people posting and asking questions for things like, where would you go to get this car repair done? And I see person after person mentioning the same person. Why? Because they've gone to that person and that person has been found to be trustworthy. They don't find repairs that don't need to be done and make up things. And this happens in a lot of places where you just don't know if you trust somebody. But when you can trust somebody, I think you'll flourish. I think God will bless you when you're trustworthy. I read this week, there was a study done of the 50 most profitable corporations in America. And they all had this in common. They all had a moral code of ethics. That doesn't mean everybody that works for them always followed it, but they had a code of morality. And I think that when we have that, God blesses us. I think that it matters so much because number 4 is God will reward my integrity. I believe that God rewards us both in this life and in an eternity. I believe integrity leads to a full, happy life. You don't have to worry about skeletons in your closet. You don't have to go around with fear. And I personally think the rewards I see in my life are not material things. I mean, I don't look at my bank account and say, wow, God's rewarded me. I believe God's blessed me. But the greatest blessings in my life are my kids and my grandkids and you, the church. And when you live out your faith, seeing my grown children being married and living their faith out in the church, seeing that happening, that's where I see God rewarding me in my life. And that reward is so much greater than anything else I could get out of this world. And I believe the greatest rewards are not just what we have here. We're only going to spend, 60 years, 70, 80, 90 years maybe, if we're fortunate, on this earth, but millions of years in eternity. And God's going to reward us there. And Jesus talked a lot about this. I don't have much time to go into that, but just one little excerpt from a parable Jesus gave in Luke 16. He said, if you're faithful in little things, you'll be faithful in large ones. But if you're dishonest with little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. In other words, God gives more to those who have integrity. He blesses us with more. And if you're unfaithful, and if you cheat, if you lie, and you lack integrity, God's not going to trust you with more. I think the reasons for integrity are very clear. You might have some more. But remember, it's not about perfection. None of us are perfect. Integrity is not about being perfect. It's who we are when nobody's watching. It's when our behaviors match our beliefs. It's our actions speaking louder than words. And with everything that I've said, as I get ready to wrap this message up, there may be some of you sitting right where you're sitting right now, and personally, you're like, man, Steve, you've really made me feel convicted. Well, that's the Holy Spirit working in your life. But then there may be some of you, you feel pretty dang good about yourself right now. Steve, thank you for preaching this message. This church needed to hear it. In fact, my kids, my husband, he needed to hear this. But yeah, I'm pretty good. Okay, good. Well, let me just challenge you just one more step further with a psalm from David, Psalm 139. David prayed this prayer to God. I encourage you to pray this prayer to God. Even as I read it, pray it. Search me, O God, know my heart. Test me, know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you. Lead me along the path of everlasting life. Search me, God. Did you ask God to search you on a regular basis and expose in your life things that are offensive to Him? If you're still feeling really great about yourself, let me just give you a few areas to check real quick, to check your integrity. One, where are you most offensive? Where I'm most offensive often reveals where I'm most vulnerable. If you're hearing somebody say something to you, you're like, I would never do that. You get angry like that. Maybe that's an area where you're lacking integrity. How about what you don't want others to know? What are you hiding from everybody? What is there in that private compartment of your life that you keep from every single person, even the person that's closest to you doesn't know about? Maybe that's an area that you're lacking integrity. And a third area to check is what you criticize in others. A lot of times when we're struggling with something, we criticize it when we see it in other people. It's an area where we're the weakest, but we criticize others in it. Ask yourself, God, is there anything that I'm doing, God, that's offensive to you? Maybe you're exaggerating stories so that people will think better of you than you really are. Is that offensive to God? Maybe you talk really bad about people to make you feel better. Is that offensive to God? Maybe you gossip, but you make it sound spiritual by saying this is a prayer request. Maybe you've cut corners on your taxes or in your finances. Maybe you claim a spiritual life that's much better than it really is, and you have secret sins that you've not confessed to God. Confess them to God right now. Let God forgive you. Do what's right and trust God with the results in your life. Integrity is the best way to live. I want to do something different to close. The closing prayer is something we're going to say together. The closing prayer is that psalm that I just read, Psalm 139. And we're going to read it and pray it together out loud to close today's message. Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24. Say it out loud with me. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life. God, thank you so much for your word and for the challenge that it presents us. And Lord, your way is the right way. Your path is the best path. Help us, God, to be people of integrity. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.